Hi, welcome to this Kickstarter preview video for Steamwatchers. Steamwatchers is a brand new game from Mythic Games which packs many streamlined mechanics, cool ideas, fresh ideas, some innovative things and tremendous phenomenal aesthetics. I'm really fascinated and drawn from the prototype. It looks amazing, so I'm just waiting for the whole production copy, how the stretch goals are going to be really bringing more and more eye candy factor to this game, because from the mechanics point of view, and I'm just giving my opinion right away, but I'm going to do it also at the end, from the mechanics point of view, this is a really nice and well thought game. Simple rules, clever ideas, clever interconnected parts that they don't really put more rules for you to bog down with additional details, a very streamlined and easy combat system, no dice at all. The combat wheels remind me of Dune, and I'm saying this in a good way because I really enjoy the simple combat system of Dune. It has so many more things like role selection, asymmetry units, special units that do additional things in the game, asymmetry things, also the incubation and the Bane. It's an important thing that really you need to go and delve into the steam spikes that really are geothermal resources for you to harness and survive these harsh conditions of the cold and bloody cold climate. Everything is frozen on Europe, and on the same time you need to be very careful of how you really deal with Bane, which is actually the disease that comes with handling all the steam spikes and the steam columns and all the things that are really controlled and evolved around it. Steamwatchers are controlling the flow of the steam. Sounds interesting? Let's find out. Join me at the table. So Steamwatcher unfolds over a frozen European continent. The environment is really messed up, and down the road there are not many things that we can do but just trying to survive. There is a tremendous increase on the water, which is followed by a real massive drop of temperature, resulting in what we see in front of us, which looks like a glimpse of what Europe used to be. Within those harsh conditions and the massive cold, frost bites and lack of food and resources, various nomadic clans struggle to survive with a regular and puzzling outbreak of steam columns that emerge from the ground. These oases of heat are vital for survival, but unfortunately they only last for a few rounds. What is even more puzzling is that they are connected with a Bane. Bane is a strange sickness that spreads around them, and everyone who gets in contact with them, with the steam columns, they suffer from the Bane. Basically, it affects both mind and body, and up to this day, no cure has been found. Various things need to be taken under consideration, like putting quarantine for specific areas or making some difficult decisions on what to cut loose. Nevertheless, handling it is a necessity that the clans have to deal with. Steamwatchers is a 2 to 5 players game which plays under a short period of time, and to my knowledge there is a 6th clan which is being currently unlocked as a Kickstarter exclusive. You and your friends will struggle over the geothermal resources of Europa in various scenarios that last from 6 to 3 rounds. The goal of the game is very simple. At the end of the last round of the chosen scenario, the winning clan needs to be the one which has the most geothermal resources, steam columns and farms. But beware, for a clan to reach hegemony, which means that they acquire 10 geothermal resources before the end of the scenario, that would mean instant victory at the end of the current round. So what you see in front of you are prototype materials. Regardless of the fact that it's very qualitative and good looking prototype, it's still a prototype. The actual final production game, which is currently being funded on Kickstarter, will have miniatures, upgraded components and many more things that are going to be unlocked during the campaign. Okay, so let's quickly familiarize ourselves with the components of the game. What you see in front of you is the map of the European continent. It looks like Europe, but it's not actually quite the same, because a lot of things have happened since the climatic change and the rise of the level of the water. followed by the massive decrease in their temperature. So you can see, for example, areas which look like the Spanish area here, or the Italian area here, or the English area here, but nevertheless, this is not Europe. Everything has changed, so everything is unique now. A lot of things evolve around these steam columns, which is a point of interest and point for harvest for most of the clans while they're trying to evolve and survive. So they can be of either level 1, level 2 or level 3 by stacking the appropriate pieces on top of each other. Game comes with 48 steam column cards, which represent different areas of the board of the European continent. So let's see the anatomy of the card. Here on the top left of the border there is a pile of cards, which actually are the 48 cards which are shuffled and put in this place. So I have opened one for you to show you the anatomy. You can see that the steam column card has a specific anatomy that shows a highlighted red area, which is where the column will appear, actually in which area of the continent. You can see at the bottom the name of the area where the column will appear. Also, you can see next to the name on the left the number of levels of the column. It could be either 2, 3. For example, for this one is not a full intensity column, so it's not going to start from 3 levels. It's going to start from 2 levels and start decreasing. And also, in some cases, on the top of the card, this is not one of them, you can see an indication if this is, for example, a starting card, which means it's part of the deployment card, where there are 3 different areas for your deployment to put your initial troops. But this has to do with the setup. Steamwatchers is highly asymmetric, being asymmetric that each clan has special abilities and special elite soldiers with special powers. Also, they have different storage and different things that you need to take under advantage if you need to succeed. So let's go quickly through the different clans and the different things you have in the game. So we have their own conglomerate, which they look like that, their own board. Then we have the High Glimmer Apostles, the yellow, the Free Fleet, them in row, the Rheinfreistamm, if I pronounce them correctly, and the last, which is a 6 and Kickstarter exclusive clan for 6 players. This is the 6th clan to choose, the Catabacians. So they all look similar. They have a dashboard. You can see that they have different markings and different spots. They're not exactly the same. Also, they have different abilities for their elite soldier and different things. Also, we're going to go into detail later on. As mentioned, Steamwatchers is played over a scenario which lasts from 3 to 6 rounds. So, for example, these are 2 tutorial scenarios which only take 4 turns, and it is for you to understand the game and get into the basic details. It has some setup information. For example, this one says that each clan deploys an additional elite soldier, and then we reveal 3 column cards to begin with the startup of the map. And there are some special rules in place depending on the scenario. For example, this one says whenever a player wins a combat, they take this card, now controlling it. This card is worth 1 geothermal resource to the controller, and during the last round it is worth 2 geothermal resource instead. Keep in mind, one of the ways to win the game is either by the end of the scenario you have the most geothermal resources, or you reach 10 geothermal resources and you have an instant win at the end of any round. So these are 2 tutorial games, scenarios, but the game will come with I think 6 or even more if they are unlocked more during the campaign with stretch goals. Here's an example of how a clan looks like, the board of each clan. I'm going to go through some basic details which apply for most of them, but keep in mind that there is high asymmetry both in the details and the levels of each of the different aspects and corners on the player clan. So for example, here you can see that you have, for example, this is the incubation gauge, which means that there are different tiers that as you take, you're affected by the Bane, you start from 0, and each time you progress, you resist the Bane, resist, and then you start applying the quarantine tokens. Essentially, these are these tokens that you decide where they go, and they limit, for example, some of your slots and your capabilities as a clan. For sure, when it reaches here, you get another one, and then you start having people off your board because your clan starts to die and you lose them completely. Another important thing is the special ability of your elite soldier. Keep in mind that you have simple soldiers with a strength of 1. These are going to be minis and not standees. but even the standees look cool. And special elite soldiers like this, which are larger minis, usually on some kind of mobile or some kind of different transportation. In any case, the special ability is listed here. For example, the Flow Rider here, Tartars may move through a nice sea area with no pact, as if they were under Cariniers' pact. So these are the special abilities, and they're very versatile and different from one clan to the other. Let's move those to the side so we continue. Here are different levels that we have. For example, here is the Algo Fuel stock, which means it's going to start with all these slots with Algo Fuel barrels, and they're going to be replenished during a round at the end. Keep in mind, this is the normal areas where you keep them. You start from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you have the contraband, which actually, if you remove them, you're affected by the Bane. Keep in mind that these are not the same for all clans. You see, they have different spots. Here is only one spot, so this is part of the asymmetry that we mentioned. Also, this is the logo of your clan. They have different logos, and these logos are printed on the back of the order tokens, for example. I'm going to come back to this in a bit. And you have also different abilities here, special abilities, and different slots to apply them. And these are things that you can put and use special abilities in addition to your normal abilities and normal orders. Another important thing to keep in mind, and it's part of the gameplay, is this gauge here, which is actually the supply gauge, and indicates in the center the number of your army size. So you start with up to 10 number units army size, and the small number on the bottom right is the number of geothermal resources you need to have so that you can sustain and, let's say, feed them with resources so they continue to keep fighting. So if you need a higher number of army, you need to keep in mind that you need to supply them with more resources, more geothermal resources, which the game calls them GEO, which are initials for geothermal resources. I just zoom in a bit better so you can have a closer look on the small and big number that they stand for, the armor size and the resources you need to supply and maintain this army. What else you get in the game is actually, as I mentioned, these quarantine, general quarantine tokens, which block spots, and they can either block special orders supply spots or even Algo Fuel storage spots, and it's up to you to decide which goes where when you have to take the quarantine based on the incubation that we have seen before when it reaches specific levels. And another thing that you get are some units which you can get more depending on or less depending on your army asymmetry. These are, for example, let me show you up close. These are the beacon. The beacon is actually a unit that, even though it has no strength, when it's left on its own, it can maintain control of an area. So you have control when you have units on an area, or when you have a beacon, which is the last thing that you can leave behind. It doesn't move, but actually it maintains control for you for a region. So you can keep exploring and conquering more areas if you need to, but you can leave a beacon behind and it stands to give you control for this area. Last but not least is the leader, which actually he is printed or she is printed on the main board as well. This is a token which is used for the Conclave. I'm going to go into the Conclave part because it's very special and unique role selection part of the game, which is very nice. And the last thing that you need to do is take a note on, besides the special orders, which we're going to explain later on, you have the majority of order tokens, which on the back they have your clan symbol, and they can be either move, defense, or decoy, which actually gives a lot of versatility and a lot of things for you to plan your movements and make your opponents believe that you're doing something, or even actually put pressure when you don't need to put pressure. Last but not least, you have the battle wheel, which looks like that. Actually has again your leader icon on the top, some Algo Fuel barrels on the bottom, and actually it's a nice dial which shows numbers from 1 all the way to 6, including 0. And actually this is used for battle when you do combat. It has a very nice, simple, streamlined system. We're going to go into detail where you add the amount of your troops plus any special conditions or modifiers, and then you secretly, simultaneously with your opponent, bid with algo fuel, which increase your let's say strength for the combat before the winner is decided. There are also modifiers like turrets, which actually we didn't show from the components of each player. They look like this, for example, which are special units that they give +2 defense. We're going to go into details in the battle, or some additional things, but this is what you bid in algo fuel, that you need to have it on your player board, on your clan board, on your storage, to remove, to commit to battle, and then try to modify the strength of your total strength of your battle in order to win it. Okay, so let's quickly go through some general concepts for the game. So as I mentioned, we have the scenarios, which are different and can have different objectives and focus points depending on the scenario chosen. So a game of Steamwatchers is defined by the scenario card, each being played from 3 to 6 rounds. We've seen the 4 rounds tutorial scenarios, so you can also select on length of the game based on the scenario. Once per round, the player chooses an Archon card and triggers its ability. The Archon cards are also used to track down how many rounds have been played, so don't take them in a discard pile, keep them separately so that you can always count them and you can always see how many rounds have been played. So the units. Armies of each clan are represented by miniatures, which are called units. There are 2 types of units. We have the soldiers, which are the unique 1 strength units, which look like that. These are standees, but they're going to be obviously minis during the course of the production copy and the Kickstarter campaign. And you can see the rendering of the minis as well on the Kickstarter page, which they look really nice. But also you have the elite soldiers with a special ability, and they look something like that, which are actually manned vehicles with special abilities and so on and so forth. There's a limited number of materials, so all game components, including soldiers, elite soldiers, farms, etc. are limited. If any component that gets removed from the game by any card or by any prompt from the scenario or from any other action, that means that it's no longer available and it's out of the game completely, returned back to the box. If you're directed to put a component into play and you no longer have that component in your supply, you simply abstain from placing it. Last but not least, we have the buildings. There are 3 types of buildings. We have the beacons, which, as I mentioned, they are markers that are used to control areas even though you may not have any unit present. Simple by having a beacon, you're able to control the area. Also, you can have turrets, which are used to increase the defense if you're being invaded by +2 for the defender. They're defensive structures. And also you have the farms. If a building is destroyed by any means, the respective token is removed from the game and put back into the box. It is not returned to the player's supply. So keep in mind when you have to protect special buildings, because you no longer will be able to have them available for your arsenal. Let's talk about the game board. The different areas that they all come together to give us Europa, as it is now after all these climatic changes. Europa is divided in 3 types of areas. We have plains, mountains and ice flows. Plains and mountains that are adjacent to a nice sea area are said to be coastal. Ice sea areas contain contract spaces. Those will hold the contract tokens of a player and allow that player to move through that area, considering that he has the ability to maintain them from turn to turn by paying 1 algo fuel, and also by actually putting them in place by visiting the special havens. So just to keep this in perspective, these dark areas are mountain areas, these are plain areas, these 2 are coastal areas because we have the ice flows which are here, and in order to cross from this area to go across, you need to have, for example, a contract by placing your token here. Speaking of havens, here's a haven, which actually are cities where the unallied Cariniers faction live. They control the seas, and clans go to the havens to barter and strike contracts with them in order to be able to cross the ice flows. There are special rules about controlling an area. An area is controlled by a clan if at least one of their units or a beacon token is in that area, and there is a special capacity limit. A plains or mountains area can hold up to 5 units and 2 buildings. This is called the air capacity. A nice flow cannot contain any units or structures. It can only be used to move across, considering that you already have a contract. As we mentioned already, a game of Steamwatchers is played in several game rounds, depending on the chosen scenario. Each and every of these rounds is made of several successive game phases. We have 5 phases that each round will go through with the same sequence. We start phase number 1, Conclave, phase number 2, Thaw, phase number 3, Order Planning, phase number 4, Resolving Disorders, and phase number 5, the Whiteout. Game phase number 1, which is actually the Conclave, and it's linked with the roles that we discussed before. During this phase, players will slide their clan leader token from the title booking track they have previously chosen to the matching space on the Conclave track. If a token is linked with a title, a player retrieves the respective matching token. For example, you can see that this icon here is the same with this token, and this icon here is linked with this token over there. So if you pick one of those roles, respectively, you get the matching token. That's what I mean. So to avoid the confusion, let's say that this is the booking track and this is the Conclave track. So you start from the booking track, which indicate what you wanted before to do, and then you would slide it in to do the respective action, something like that. So I'm going to move everything here and start from here going onward to describe the different roles. Keep in mind that number 1 is Watcher, Steamwatcher, and number 4 is Steamwatcher, and all the rest are different. So, the Watchers, this is the first one, at number 1 and number 4. This is actually where the whole game, Steamwatcher, gets its name, and it's actually very linked with the thematic, and I really like how they linked it together. So Watcher, there is no matching token. Each Watcher draws 3 cards from the Steam column deck that we have seen before. Just to keep this in perspective, these are these cards that we have shown already at the beginning. So each Watcher would draw 3 cards, so they have a piece of the information. They will choose 2 of those cards, which are placed in their Watcher hand, and place the 3rd under the Steam column deck, essentially returning it at the back, at the bottom of the deck where they drew the cards from. There is no hand size for the Watcher hands, and a player may select the Watcher title multiple times to increase their hand over multiple rounds. Then we go to the Archon phase, the Archon role in the Conclave, which is actually this one, and it has a matching token that is picked up by the player who chooses the Archon role. So the Archon draws 2 Archon cards. Let me show you the back of the Archon cards. It looks something like that. And there are different cards that they come in the game. I'm sure more will be unlocked with special abilities and things that happen, a lot of information and a lot of things that will modify the conditions and what will happen in the game during this round. So the Archon draws 2 Archon cards and secretly looks at them. They choose one and place the other under the Archon deck. The chosen card is revealed, read, and its abilities are applied. It is placed beside the game board so that we can track the rounds of the game, because only one will be played every round. Depending on the scenario, if we finish at 6 rounds, then we have 6 Archon cards if we didn't reach the 10 GO already. So we keep them as a tracker for the game round, and if the Archon title has not been chosen, for example, no one picked this role, no one went here, that means that this round, the first player of the Conclave, which would be here, or someone else if no one chose this one, will pick up this role and actually do what the track indicates to do. So you will do the Archon's ability. Another role is the one that is linked with the Cariner's Legate, which actually is this symbol here. Keep in mind that we also have, for example, this icon on other players' tokens as well. So this is the Cariner's Legate. You place the Legate token in a nice float area. So we take this and we place it on a nice float area, actually based on our plans and our strategy, meaning that we're going to have a contract with them in order to be able to pass through the ice across. So we use it for expansion essentially. So this token is considered as a contract but does not take up a space on the contract, does not take up a contract space, meaning you can have more on the respective slots. So remember here, for example, this is for 5 or 6 players, and these are 2 more. So this is not actually the respective. The gate token is not actually taking one of these spots. Last but not least, we have the Primus. The Primus is a player who takes a Primus token, which is this one, and essentially it gives him the ability to choose on the next round. So what they do is they put the token of the title on the booking track in front of them, and they seize the role they want before the others. So they get to choose first in advance what they're going to do next. They will obtain this title the next round, and the troops whose leader is also a Primus are immune to demoralized cubes. We haven't spoken about demoralized cubes, are the red cubes that actually impact the strength if they are fleeing from one lost battle. We're going to come back into detail for this. Game phase number 2 is Thaw. This is very interesting actually because it's linked with the Watcher's ability. Each Watcher that we got from the Conclave role before chooses a Steam column card in their hand and reveals it. For each unassigned Watcher title, we reveal an additional card from the top of the Steam column randomly. The Watchers keep the remaining cards in their hand because they can use it in future turns if they take up again the Watcher title later in the game. So, for each revealed card, you place Steam columns in the specified areas according to the levels shown on the card. Here, for example, we have opened 3 cards. On the top we can see there are level 2 and level 3 Steam columns, and in the bottom there is a level 1 Steam column. All of them will target the specified red area. So it is very clear that the Watchers clearly control the flow of the Steam, which is very, very crucial for everyone. So for each this revealed card, we will place Steam columns in the respective places. Then the Steam column cards will be returned to the discard pile, meaning they will not shoot again. If a Steam column appears in an area that contains a farm, you remove the farm from the board and put it back into the general supply. Farms will be able to be spawned by the players who control an area with level 1 Steam column, because before the end of the round the Steam column will diminish, will 0, and it's your ability, your decision to remove it and put a Steam farm actually, which is something that you're going to keep contributing for your purposes. Moving on to phase number 3, which is the order planning. During this phase, all players will simultaneously place their order tokens face down on the board on the respective areas that they control, and they have troops, in order to place orders. So you place the orders, all players together work simultaneously, putting one face down order token on each of the areas that contain at least one of their units, either soldier or elite soldiers. These order tokens are resolved during the next phase. Each area can only hold one order token. As you can see, I already placed one order token on each of the areas that I control with a unit, either a soldier or elite soldier or a mixture of those. Please keep in mind that if you have, for example, a beacon that is not considered a unit, meaning that you cannot place an order for the beacon to move or do something, or a building for the same reason. So, as you can see in the center of the game board in the C, I just put the pile of order tokens so that you can see that the back of each order token shows the symbol of the clan, and respectively that you have seen that from the previous screen some order tokens appeared because I already placed order tokens from all players to these specific areas, meaning this is now actually the placing order token phase. It is done by all, and then we move to the revealing order tokens. Keep in mind that if for any reason you don't have enough order tokens, there are quite a lot as you can see, but if you don't have enough order tokens to give to all the areas where you control with a unit, then you skip some of those respectively. Now, we move to revealing the order tokens. Simply, we flip all order tokens on the board, revealing the order side simultaneously for all of them together. Now, as you can see, I have flipped all the order tokens from all of the players on their active side, so you can see the symbols and actually the orders that the players gave for the respective areas they control and the troops within. So, moving to phase number 4, game phase number 4, this is the resolving orders phase, where actually it's very simple, we activate the order tokens. During this phase, players take turns to activate one of their order tokens and resolve its effect. This is also when combat could be triggered. Following the Conclave track order, each player either activates one of their revealed order tokens and performs an action, we'll explain the actions later on, or they pass for the round. So we have a Conclave order and a track order, which for example we have 4 players here, and depending on the role they select, they have a player turn sequence. So each of the 4 players can select by turn one of their order tokens, execute the order, and then we reset and go back to the number 1 from the Conclave order track and select a second order token, and so on and so forth. At any time a player can drop out by pass, and we see what goes when we pass for the round. So if you pass for the round, you may pass if you do not wish to perform any of the actions for the round, or you don't want to do it, or you cannot do it. In this case, you return all remaining move tokens on the game board to your supply. The defense tokens remain on the board and still provide their combat bonus in case you are attacked by any other players. And you place your clan leader token on a free space of the title booking track, picking essentially what you're going to do for the next round, except if you are the Primus, in which case you have already done so, as explained by the role description. You cannot resolve any more orders. You play like this until all players have passed, or actually have played all their order tokens, or have chosen to pass, and then they have placed their clan leader token by booking their role on the title booking track. The whole game is about explaining the order tokens, which actually have a lot of the strategic portion of the game, and we're going to come back with some more details in the end of this video. But for the purpose of the video flow, let me finish by describing the last and 5th phase of a round, which is the whiteout, so that you get the whole picture before we go into the final details. So during game phase number 5, whiteout, during this step, steam columns become less active. Basically imagine that you have a steam coming from the ground, popping steam all the way to the heavens, and then this starts removing the pressure, and the steam starts dropping, and this is what happens by removing actually levels from the steam columns. This is a very cool mechanism. So players prepare for the next round during this stage, and the winner of the game can also be checked during this stage if we haven't reached the end of the game scenario, depending on the turns that the rounds that the scenario dictates. So during whiteout, we do this, the 4 below specific sub routines. We start by number 1, the farms. Before the columns drop, each player may build farms on areas where they control with exactly 1 steam column. So this needs to be timed, because for example here, this player controls an area with a level 3 steam. They cannot build a farm here. This would need to have been decreased by previous rounds, meaning that now it's a point of focus for the rest, maybe to try to conquer or displace him. But if no one displaced him, or if he survived like that, now he can choose to remove this one last steam column and then build 1 farm. Essentially, they're going to pick up one of their farms. I'm just going to move this for the purpose of the video. Imagine it's coming from the supply, and put it in this area, and then they're going to return the last column level to the supply. The next thing they do is they increase the incubation level or on their player board. I'm showing another clan, but on the right you can see the incubation meter, meaning that you are contaminated because you are working around the steam. This is where the Bane comes from, and by building a farm which is going to give you something positive for the future, you are contaminated and you take 1+1 on the incubation meter. Why do we want to build farms? I remind you the goal of the game. The goal of the game is to be the one with the most geothermal resources, that they come either from steam columns and farms. So we are building farms because actually they are permanent, or at least a permanent, semi-permanent way of increasing our GEO, our germothermal resources, which we need to win the game. Next, what happens, the second subroutine of the fifth whiteout phase, is that the steam columns decrease. Each steam column loses one level, and we return the lost steam column level to the supply. For each level that was removed in an area containing at least one of your units, remember beacons are not units, you increase again the incubation level of your clan by 1. So again, you are contaminated from the Bane because you are working close to the steam columns. So let's say that it was like before, this was a level 3 steam column. If this was the whiteout phase, after building farms, we could not build the farm here because it's level 3, we would simply remove one, convert it to a level 2 steam column, which will last for 2 more rounds, and we would get 1 contamination, increasing our incubation meter by 1, because at least we have at least 1 unit in this area and we're contaminated, our clan is contaminated by the Bane. The third subroutine of whiteout of the 5th phase is the supply. We check for algo fuel. Remember algo fuel is this nice green shiny cubes. They are going to be shiny barrels, actually in the production copy of Steamwatchers, which is really nice. I've seen the pictures already. So what happens during this algo fuel supply phase is that each player refills their algo fuel stock from their clan board by putting respectively these algo fuel green barrels. They're going to be nice barrels during the production copy on their respective spots if you have used them all, or refilling them, and also any contraband spots that you may have used again will be refilled with algo fuel. This, if you use them, you increase your incubation meter, so you have to be very skeptic about using those, but you may have to use them depending on your strategy. Regardless, during this supply algo fuel check, you refill everything on your clan board. Then you count the geothermal resources. To calculate your geothermal resources, you simply add the number of farms in areas you control. This is the icon of a farm, in case you forgot how it looks like. You have built farms and you start with some farms from game setup. So you add the number of farms in areas you control, plus the number of steam column levels in areas you control after the decrease. Any points from other sources such as scenario cards, Archon cards, etc. are also added at this stage. For example, if I had a level 3 steam column here, plus, let's say, 1 farm, this would give me a total of 4. But you do this for all the areas you control. So for example, if I was I only had 4 at this stage, I would have to drop one. Actually, I'm here. I would have to drop one from 5 to 4. Or if I had more, I would increase this by indicating on the GEO tracker at the bottom of the game board. Say for the purposes of the example, I managed to get like 7 GEOs here. Then I go back to my clan game board and I check if I need to adjust my level on the geothermal resources gauge on my game board to reflect my current level. So I went up to 7, meaning I'm going to move this up to 7 here. Why this is important? I remind you that the level of my GEO, currently being at 7, indicates what army size I can have on the map of Europa. If for any reasons I had various quarantine tokens on various spaces on my clan board, including areas here, that means that I would not be able, for example, let's say I had one more, I would not be able to go all the way up to 7, I would go up to 6 because this is going to be blocked for me due to my incubation problematic strategy. So what I need to check now is, do I supply the army? Each player checks that they can supply the army with their geothermal resources score. To do so, you check the maximum army size that is linked to your current GEO resource score. You count how many units you have on the game board. If you have more units than the maximum army size, you return as many units to your supply as needed so that you do not exceed this maximum. This is very crucial because you may be having a good amount of soldiers on with boots on the ground, but if you don't supply them sufficiently, you would lose some of them for sure. The fourth and last subroutine that you run during your whiteout phase, game phase number 5, the fourth subroutine of game phase number 5 is the upkeep. You remove all demoralized cubes from the board. I haven't mentioned anything about demoralized cubes, but these are those red cubes here that you may have acquired during the game session, during the turn, from fleeing defending units that they went out from an area where they lost the battle. We're going to go in a few details about this, but if any of those remain at this stage, they go out. They don't go from one round to the other one. You take them out. Each player retrieves the order tokens that they still might be on the board because they didn't execute them. For example, keep in mind that this is some of the order tokens we're going to explain later what they mean. We haven't explained what they actually mean so far. And then each player is going to remove their contract. If this guy had a contract here with the neutral clan, so that they can cross the ice and use it for better navigation and better expandability. So if you choose, you have to remove it because this is removed at this stage, unless you pay 1 algo fuel to keep these in place. So they are costly, but actually they keep giving you more options because you can expand easier than without them. So the game has very clever mechanisms and very cool ideas without bogging down with too many details and too many unnecessary rules. But one of the most important and clever aspects of the game design, in my opinion, is the order tokens and how you sufficiently use them to your advantage. So let's dig in and see a bit of more detail about the order tokens. During the resolution phase that we discussed before, players will activate the two types of order tokens, move and defense. Keep in mind that, for example, this order token, when it has an X, this is a decoy. This is not going to do anything. You're going to remove it once revealed because it's a decoy. By having it as such on the planning phase, your opponents may think that you're planning to do something, either defend or march or move or whatever. So they may draw their forces towards you, but during the execution you reveal and it's a decoy. That means that the X is removed and you simply made them lose some of their momentum trying to defend this area or whatever. So the main two types of orders are the move token, which is this one, and the defense token, which is this one. So let's talk a bit more about those. To activate an order token, remember you activate one of your order tokens by putting a special token on top of that, executing it and then removing it. Then the next player in the conclave turn order goes, and then it may come back to you to do your second order token if you didn't pass, and so on and so forth. So in order to activate the order token, you perform a base action, which is linked with the type of order token, if it is move or defense, and or one of the special actions that are tied to that order. The special actions, I'm going to show you again from this player. These are the main order tokens with a clan symbol, and they have the three types of orders: the decoy, the X, the movement and the defense. And these are the special order tokens that I'm going to explain. They're placed on the slots as long as you don't have quarantine here from your clan board, and they're linked with specifically either move or defend, and you execute them as well together with your base action. So let's see about some details, because each special action clearly is linked with how many slots you have and how many potential you have on your clan board. Let's see how the move activation token works. When you're activating a move token, you may divide the units from the activated area into any number of groups of any number of units and perform a move, a base action, or a forced march special action with each unit or group of units. So let's see how the move actually works. For example, I can activate this move action and say I move those two here and those go here. This is one of my move order tokens executed. Keep in mind that when you actually do the move order token, when activating a move token, you may deploy a beacon. Beacons are those icons here. So if, for example, you move you moved all your tokens from this area, in order not to lose control, you can leave one of your beacon tokens so that you can still control this area, even though with almost zero defense. So when you do the move base action, you can either be moving on land or seafaring. So moving on land, simply moving on land allows a unit or groups of units to move to an adjacent plains or mountains area. So these are mountains and these are plains, but you cannot move on ice floes, which are these, for example, unless you have the contract that allows you to do so. Seafaring, which is the other type of move base action, seafaring allows you, the unit or the group of units, to move from a coastal area to another coastal area by crossing an ice floe that is adjacent to both coastal areas. Actually, you expand navigation and you expand your possibilities by at least a 10th factor or whatever, because since you are now using the ice, the frozen ice, and you have a contract with the neutral clan that allows you to use their, let's say, navigation systems and mobiles and ships to go on the surface of ice, then you can go from any coastal area to even across the other side or wherever you choose based on your strategy. You cannot move into mountains when seafaring. So this needs to be very, very carefully thought, because this is one of the restrictions. If you have multiple ice floe under contract for different areas of the game board of Europa, then you can treat them all as a single floe when seafaring, meaning that you can cleverly connect them and being able to go all the way from the bottom of the game board, let's say, to the very north of it, which is very, very, very flexible, as you can understand. So the forced march is a special action. For each unit or groups of units that perform this action, you put a force marker token from your supply to a free special action space on your clan, as long as you have one available, and you spend one algo fuel barrel. So this is the forced, let me show you up close, the forced march token. It indicates that you need to pay one algo fuel. You need to have a space here, so you can do it up to 3 times if you have 3 of those tokens, or at least depending on what you do, what your clan allows, and then you can do this forced march movement. A forced march movement allows a unit or group of units to move through one adjacent plains area to another adjacent plains area. Keep in mind that moving through an area does not allow you to bypass area capacity. The capacity that each area has is 5 units plus 2 buildings. This is not negotiated by any means. What I mentioned before, and this is a key part, the force march allows you only to go from plains to plains. You cannot go from plains to mountains or mountains to mountains. This has to be on plains movement specifically. What is important is that you can actually, you cannot move through an area controlled by an opponent, which makes sense for sure, but you can also grab any number of units of an area you move through during a forced march and add them to the moving units. The units you gather must follow the rules of area capacity for sure, and forced march as well. The second option that you have seen is to mobilize troops, which is a special action. You simply need to have space for special tokens, so you place this mobilize troops special action, and to carry out a mobilize special action you put the token on a free space, and then you either put 2 soldiers from your supply to the area where you activated. For example, keep in mind that these are how the soldiers look. They're going to be minis during the Kickstarter campaign and the final production copy. Or you can put 1 elite unit, which are usually the more meaner and more capable soldiers, which also have a strength of 2 instead of 1. So either 2 soldiers or 1 elite soldier. Mobilizing troops does not allow you to go above the 5 units per area limit capacity. Remember, golden rule, only 5 units in an area and only up to 2 buildings. The third and last thing that you can do is you can barter with the cariners for a special action, and this is where you put the final special order token if you have any to do so, and to carry out you install it on your clan board if you have a slot, and then for each haven you control you put a cariner's contract token from your supply to a free contract space on an ice floe. Let's go have a quick look. Last but not least, you can see the 5 to 6 player note here, which means these are only active if you're playing a 5 or 6 player game, thus giving you one more slot for additional contracts to be installed. A detail, contracts need to be paid by one algo fuel at the end if you need to maintain them, otherwise they are removed at the end of the round. Okay, now let's see the most important thing in the game, and actually the most interesting, which is the combat. When one or more units move into an area containing units of another clan, by actually doing, let's say, move order, these guys will move in there, if I wish to do so, then a combat occurs, a battle starts. The active player is the attacker and the other player is the defender. The combat is divided in 3 different phases. We have phase number 1, which is the initial strength check, phase number 2, which is the actual battle and winning, and phase number 3, which is the battle combat outcome. So let's see each of those in a bit more detail. The first thing that we do is we check the initial strength of each of the sides, the attacker and the defender. For the initial strength, it is subdivided in army strength plus any extra strength they can get. The army strength, to be calculated, what you need to do is to add the strength of all of their units in their fight, meaning the minis. Each soldier is giving +1 strength and each elite soldier is giving +2 strength. So in this case, the player on the left has 3 soldiers and an elite soldier, which is +5, and the player on the right, I'm talking about this region here, not this one, this is another one, the border is there. So this region for the defender here has +2 units. This is only the army strength. Keep in mind that if you have a demoralized token, I'm going to explain how these are acquired in a defending area, their strength is rounded down by 2. So they would be only +1 because their morale is low. But I removed it now for purposes of this example. So we're still back to 5 versus 2. Okay? Now, the next thing we check is the extra strength. Extra strength is not affected by demoralized cubes and it is consisted by the total of defense tokens, turrets, and support. Let's see each of those in detail. So let's say, for example, this guy had a defense token there, which means he had a defense order token there, so he had a +1, and there is also a turret installed which gives a +2, as you can see here. The big one at the back gives nothing. So added to the +2 from the soldiers, from the units, you get another +3. 2 from the turret and +1 from the activation defense token, order token. And the attacker still has +5. Now, anything else that can add strength to this stage is the support. To support their troops, the attacker and the defender may return 1 or more order tokens on their clan from adjacent areas to the supply. If an area supports in combat, the extra strength of the player who is backed up is increased by the army strength of the supporting area. The move token being activated for sure here does not add anything. So let's say, for the purpose of the example, this guy here, let's say they had 1 support token here. If I remove the support token, they are going to support the invaded area in the middle and add +2 because they're supporting. They do not move their units, so these guys on the right do not have to go in the center. They are supporting from a distance, from adjacent, and they're not affected by losing any units regardless of the outcome. So at the stage, if I had only an order token, I removed it, then they support, otherwise they do not support. Same can go for the attacker. They can also do the same and add to their attacking strength. The third thing that we do is we announce our actual strength. So our initial strength is announced. For the moment, the attacker on the left has +5 and the defender on the right has 2 plus 2 for the turret plus 1 for the defense order. So it is 5 versus 4. We don't have any support at the moment. At this stage, we move to the combat phase number 2, which is battle and winning. After we announce the total strength, we go into the bidding part, which is actually very cool and reminds me of a streamlined version of Dune, which I really love. It's a very simple element that adds a lot to a fast-paced attacking and battle resolution. So each side has, let me put it here so you can see, these dials, which actually are one for each of the sides. It indicates the leader on the graphic portion, and it is a dial because it has values for algo fuel barrels from all the way from 0 up to 6. So this is how many algo fuel are going to secretly commit to your cause. A very important rule is that you need for sure to have this in order to use them for your bidding. Otherwise, you cannot put a number, for example 6, if I only have 5. So at this stage, both players simultaneously secretly decide one number to commit based on what they have seen and the public information they have and what they're willing to sacrifice because they're going to lose it. And once both of them have decided, they flip their dials and add. First of all, they pay, let's say this guy had one, for this example. They pay from their clan borders what they spent, so the player on the left will remove 2 algo fuel and the player on the right will remove 1 from their clan boards, and they're going to total everything. So on the left we have 2 plus 5, 7 in total, and on the right we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 1, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 1, 6. This is the correct total number. So 7 versus 6, the attacker on the left wins the battle. Obviously, the player with the highest final combat strength is the winner. In case of a tie, the attacker wins, which actually means that the game really favors attacking. And it's really cool to keep attacking for sure with the correct circumstances and potential so that you can gain more things, because even if you are tied, you will going to win. Now, let's move to combat phase number 3, which is the final outcome. There are consequences for the loser. The loser removes some of their elements from the board. First of all, one of their units is returned to the supply. So let's say here, this guy is removed and returned to the supply. We have already paid those, so I'm also removing them for simplicity. After removing one of your units, any beacons that are in there are also removed. This guy has a beacon behind him, and also this is going to be removed. Now, what is left is retreating. If you had any order tokens, so for sure they're going to be removed and given back to the player for the next turn. So what is left, all the units that are left there are retreating. You can only retreat into going away from this area, emptying this area, but going into friendly areas. So for example, this guy cannot retreat here because this is neutral, but they can only retreat here if they wish to do so. In any case, the same moving on land or seafaring rules still apply, and also the capacity limit applies. So if I had 6 soldiers in there, I could 5 soldiers in there, I could not move my 6th one because the capacity will be above the limit. If for some reason fleeing is impossible, the loser returns all of their fleeing units to their supply. If while fleeing you exceed the capacity, again you return the units to the supply. When one or more units move into an area by fleeing, then they bring with them fear, and that's how a demoralized cube is entering the area, unless it already has one. So if I decide to flee with this guy here, I'm going to also bring my fear and drop morale for the receiving friendly area. What does this mean? Demoralized cubes are really nasty things. First of all, what it means is that the army strength of the controller of that area is divided by 2 rounded down. So this is not going to be 3, it's not going to be 1.5 or 2, it's going to be 1 rounded down. So it's really nasty because you see before it was 2. Now it's going to be 1, even though 3 units are there, at least for this round. At the end of the round, this cube is going to go away, but they need to reel and manage to pull it through for the remaining round. The next bad, nasty thing that happens is that no units can leave this area. So they are frozen, locked, and any move, if they had a move order token to do something else, to go maybe on the right, this is going to be ignored and removed since they cannot move. As you would expect, if a defender under the effects of a demoralized cube wins a combat, then the morale is going to increase, so the cube is going to be removed. If the attacker enters an area which already had a demoralized cube, what they're going to do is they're going to remove the cube from the area because their morale is high, they won the battle, and they're still flying high. So the golden rule is simple: ice that guy. If by fleeing you introduce low morale, and in this case this is bad because from +2 strength you're going to go to +1 due to the demoralized cube, and you know that you are under danger because someone else is going to attack you because you are in the center of everything or whatever, and you're not going to risk it by waiting for the cube to be removed at the end of the turn, then you may decide not to accept this fleeing unit with his or her demoralized cube and actually ice him directly, so they die. Him and any other fleeing units, that is. So the outcome of the combat obviously dictates the winner. The winner takes or keeps control of the attacked area. This is very important because this is the way to acquire more areas, to expand your control and gain more ground on Europa. Okay, quick word on incubation level and its consequences. Bane incubation level is a harsh thing. You want to avoid it at any cost, but sometimes you're just going to bite it. So, the incubation level increases during the game when you spend contraband algo fuel barrels, when you control steam columns that lower during phase 5 with a whiteout, when you build the farm, because again you are contaminated by the Bane, or by resolving an Archon or scenario card that dictates you to increase your incubation level. What are the consequences? Each time your incubation marker moves up, you apply the effect of the space you reach. If your incubation marker moves up multiple spaces, you apply the effect of each level you pass and the one that you reach at the end. There are 3 types of spaces. First of all is the Bane resistance. So the first few spaces are okay. You can resist this madness by reaching these spaces. But if you are continuing to go up, then you reach some quarantine spaces. And quarantines are these tokens, pretty nasty tokens, because you're going to choose which areas to block. Of course not this one, I'm going to go all the way up, but basically quarantine tokens either block a special action space, your algo fuel stock, or your supply gauge. In any case, they limit your performance and your ability and flexibility together. But this does not stop here, because you can continue gaining quarantine units all the way up until you get to the skull, which is Death and Exile. You remove one of your units from the game board. If it is not, when you reach this skull, you remove it completely from your supply. You don't have it anymore for your supply. You put it outside your supply and into the box. And for sure, now each time your incubation level rises, you continuously apply the Death and Exile instead. Ouch. Endgame and Victory. The game can end in 2 ways. Before the last round of the chosen scenario, at the end of phase 5, the whiteout, if a player has at least 10 geothermal resources, they win the game. If multiple players reach or exceed this threshold at the same time, the first of the tied players on the Conclave track wins, even if their geothermal resources score would be highest. For example, if I go to 11 and another player goes to 12, all of them are above the 10 threshold. If I'm on number 1 roll on the Conclave, then I win the game. The second way for the game to end is during the last round of the chosen scenario, again at the phase 5, the whiteout, where the player with the most geothermal resources wins. So if I have 8 and another player has 7 and another one has 3, I would win by 8. In case of a tie, if we both of us have 8 geothermal resources, then the player with the least quarantine tokens on their board wins. And if again there is a tie, the first player on the conclave again wins the game. So the clans are very asymmetric in this game, because each of those clans have a special clan ability and make them a bit more weak or a bit more strong on different areas, so they feel and play differently. For example, I'm not going to go through all the details because I'm going to leave them for you to discover, and it's part of the final pages of the rulebook. But let's say the High Glimmer Apostles, their special ability is Faith's Bulwark, which means that this ability grants a +2 strength to the defense tokens of the clan instead of the normal +1. Respectively, the Catabasians, which is the Kickstarter exclusive clan that is being unlocked, has the Glider special ability, which means that this ability allows you to pay no algo fuel actually for your forced march if the activated area, origin of the move, is on the mountains area. These guys really like the mountains. In addition, all the clans have elite special soldiers with unique abilities. Each of them have a special ability. For example, the special ability of the Lotum is that it's massive. Whenever there is a Lotum in the attack ranks, its strength is boosted by 1. Or the Skybreaker special ability, which I really like, the Suppressing Fire. When you attack and win a combat with 1 or more Skybreakers, what I call name, you remove an order token or a turret from an area which is adjacent to the attacked area, so it does massive damage. Well, there you have it. This is Steamwatchers. I was really drawn by the aesthetics in this game, and I came out from the other side of the tunnel loving the mechanics and the phases and everything that goes around the system of Steamwatchers. It looks like a game that it's going to be heavily weighted on the aesthetics because it has a huge board, very appealing art, a potential for tremendous minis, which I'm going to see coming on the Kickstarter campaign, and already the renderings look gorgeous. So I have no doubt that the development and the final production is going to look phenomenal. They always do from this company. But what is really interesting here, and I'm going to sit more heavily on, is the system. Simple rules, very fresh ideas. The combat is so smooth. I mean, I went through all the details to show you all the details of the rules, but it's very fast, very simple. The game promotes attacking. There is a lot of connectivity, and imagine that there is a map and suddenly some things are frozen and the map becomes a bit larger. So things that looked like impassable and you are out of reach from your opponent, now you're going to be attacking each other because you're going to be right at each other's neck, at each other's backyard, because the ice is frozen and you have a contract so with you know, the free clans, so they can travel you across and reach them very carefully from each coastal area to the next one. So everyone is in danger, everyone needs to think carefully, everyone is really drawn by the focus points, which are called steam columns. These are the steam spikes that they come from the geothermal activity in the down below the snow and the frozen cold. So there are places where you can harness this oasis from geothermal resources, build farms and manage to survive because the conditions are really harsh. The theme really gets out very well, but also the flexibility, the dynamic, the moving parts, they make sense. If there was, let's say, a climatic disaster, which for some reason I can see it really happening down the road, something like that could happen. And the fun part of this game is handling the Bane, because handling all the steam spikes and all the steam, they have the benefit, they give you resources, but there is a disease that goes around it, and you need to really balance the potential and the good from harvesting steam spikes for geothermal resources and essentially for winning the game, with the contamination you get from the Bane, because they kill your resources, they block with quarantine tokens your potential, they bog down your clan system, you start real fresh and with a lot of options, and then if you're getting contaminated, some things are blocked, so they can limit your army size because your resources and your geo gauge is really linked with the army level you can have on the board. Everything looks very well thought. I was very pleasantly surprised by how things are streamlined, work together, keep being real interesting without being drawn down with heavy rules, unnecessary simulations of combat, dice rolls or whatever. Very, very simple, clean system that really gets across. I'm looking forward to try it with different scenario cards. I only have 2 from this prototype, and I'm looking forward for the rest. I'm really looking forward to see what the different expansions are going to bring to the game. Not that the game doesn't have a lot of things to go on, but when you find something, when you find gold, actually, you need to go and dig deeper. You need to find more things. So I feel like this is like a gem, which has a lot of potential, and I'm really looking forward to what is going to go down the road together with it. So if you like this video, give me a thumbs up or give me your comments. I'll try to improve myself. Also, if you like this game, or if you think it's something that will appeal to you and your gaming group, go and support it at Kickstarter and see if we can unlock more stretch goals and see what's behind this whole Steamwatchers campaign. Looks very promising. I'm really enjoying it. This is Steamwatchers. Many thanks for watching.